So the breaking news is that Alexander Usyk has just signed a multi-fight promotional deal with Skill Challenge. This is the Saudi promotional company headed up by Prince Khalid. Now, he says the goal in signing with Skill Challenge is to make the Tyson Fury fight, the undisputed fight. And of course, people are wondering whether this move will make it easier or actually make it more difficult, because Tyson Fury, if he doesn't want a fight, and Usyk at the press conference said Fury doesn't want this fight but will still get it made, if he doesn't want it, and certainly judging by what's happened over the past year or so, he hasn't wanted it. But there might be a time in the future when he wants it. Let's see how Usyk looks against Daniel Dubois. But in the meantime, when Fury still doesn't want it, he will find any excuse to get out of the fight. And in this instance, he might say, well, Usyk has signed with the Saudis now, so I'm not going to get a fair crack at the whip at the negotiating table with the officials or anything like that, because he's their guy. And so he can now try and use that to wiggle his way out of the fight. And Tyson Fury could have fought Alexander Usyk in Saudi when neither of them was signed to Skill Challenge in April of this year. That's a fact, because Alexander Usyk agreed to his deal with the Saudis for that particular fight. He agreed, Tyson Fury didn't agree. According to Eddie Hearn, and you can take this or leave it, but Eddie Hearn said this in a recent interview, Tyson Fury wanted $120 million off the Saudis in order to fight Usyk. Now, think about this, you demented Fury fanboys. Tyson Fury would have been offered way more money by the Saudis. Maybe they weren't willing to give him the $120 million he wanted, but he still would have been offered way more money by the Saudis to fight Usyk than he would have got fighting Usyk at Wembley in the UK. So why would he turn down the Saudi deal? This is what I was saying all along. Why did Tyson Fury turn down the Saudi deal? All this stuff about stadiums is nonsense. There's loads of venues in Saudi Arabia that could have hosted that fight. It's just Frank Warren spinning some silly excuse. Yeah? Usyk signed. He had no problems. He wasn't worried about stadiums not being finished and all this. He agreed to his deal with the Saudis back then, earlier on this year. Tyson Fury didn't. That's why the fight didn't happen. Why would he turn down more money to fight Usyk in Saudi and instead want to take less money to fight Usyk in the UK? It don't make any sense. It only makes sense when you realize that Fury was just pricing himself out. He wasn't negotiating directly with Team Usyk. He was negotiating with the Saudis. And the man actually priced his way out of a deal with them. Unbelievable. And then after he priced his way out of a deal with them, he priced his way out of a deal with Alexander Usyk too, when he was negotiating directly with them, or when his team were negotiating directly with them. Now, at this press conference to announce Usyk signing with Skill Challenge, Prince Khalid was constantly talking about the integrity of Usyk and his team. And he said that plays a major part in who he decides to sign, because Usyk isn't the only fighter they've signed. There'll be other announcements for other fighters in the coming days and weeks. And that's really going to be a big story in boxing, because they're going to be able to pay way more than anybody else. So Saudi Arabia, in a boxing sense, could become the new Vegas. In fact, it kind of is becoming the new Vegas. Back in the days, the casinos used to pay enormous site fees in Vegas for big boxing bouts. That's why it was always the go-to. That's why if a big fight was going to happen, it almost exclusively had to be in Vegas. But today, things have changed. The world has changed. New powers have emerged in the sport of boxing, and some of the old powers have lost their luster. And with Skill Challenge coming into the game this heavy, signing Usyk and what have you, they might be able to do what they say they're going to do, which is make the fights that everybody wants to see, that the world thinks can't be made. Because if you throw enough money at a problem in boxing, you can usually solve it. But in some instances, that may come with a catch, whereby the fighters have to sign with Skills Challenge. We'll see if that becomes an issue. But they're another player in the game of boxing. And again, they talked about how the values of a fighter plays as much a part in them deciding to sign them as their actual ability. They talked about Usyk's values and how easy he is to deal with, and how he's a man of God and a man of integrity. Obviously, they dealt with Usyk for the Joshua rematch, and they also dealt with him, as I've just mentioned a few moments ago, with regards to negotiating for a Fury fight. So they were happy, obviously, with Usyk's conduct in negotiating that Fury fight. So any notion that Usyk didn't want to fight Fury, are you having a laugh? And before I conclude this video, a quick word about Badu Jack. he's absolutely had it off. Because really and truly, Badu Jack is way over the hill. Yes, he beat Makabu. Makabu was way over the hill. Makabu was never that good to begin with. But Badu Jack obviously is from Sweden. He went to America to learn his trade in boxing. He was a world champion. He had some good nights and some not so good nights. And he was really coming to the end of his career when he moved out to the Middle East. I think he was living in Dubai or Abu Dhabi with his family and what have you. But he's obviously made some friends out there, including friends in very high places. And he's become like the poster boy for boxing in the Middle East over the past couple years. He's going to make more money now in a few fights than he made in his entire career previously, I would imagine. So he's absolutely had it off. And hey, good luck to him. Blue collar fighter, came up the hard way. This wasn't a guy who was coddled or anything like that. Had lots of tough fights, tough nights. And now he's having this Indian summer in his career. Not just because he's a champion, but also the kind of paydays he'll be getting. Crazy at this stage. Beyond his wildest dreams. I'm sure when he first started out boxing, he never imagined he'd be making this type of money. So more power to him. And yeah, Alexander Usyk signs with Skill Challenge. Will this make the Tyson Fury fight easier to do? Or will it actually make it more difficult? Tyson Fury asking for 120 million. A few weeks ago, when Simon Jordan was first talking about this heavyweight tournament in Saudi Arabia, he mentioned a rumor that he'd heard that maybe the Saudis were trying to buy AJ out of his DAZN contract. Did they want to sign him? AJ certainly had the clean-cut image, up to a certain point at least. So for the brand that Skill Challenge are building, they probably like that. Whereas somebody like Tyson Fury, I can't imagine accords with the type of values they're talking about, or at least the type of image they're talking about. And on top of that, his conduct behind the scenes in negotiations is a shambles. But nonetheless, Usyk says he wants the fight. They're going to try very hard to make the fight. They say it's possible. Let's hope that it is. Let's hope they can cut a check too big for Tyson Fury to turn down, even if he is going to be the away fighter in a sense. Obviously, neither of them are from Saudi Arabia, but Usyk is now signed with the Saudi promotional team. And it's not just a regular situation where it's a promotional company. It's headed up by one of the princes of that kingdom. So how's Fury going to feel about that? How might he use that? Anyway, let me know what you guys think about all this in the comments below.